Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 296 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book is called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, in a former life, I was a website designer. And when Google first launched, I saw it as a really interesting way to help my clients get more traffic to their websites. So my mother-in-law, she had 16 purebred Mastiff puppies in her house, and they were growing really fast. She asked if I could help her by building a website and then finding new homes for all 16 of these puppies. Now, sure enough, I built the website and then I started using trial and error to figure out how to get to the top of the search engine results naturally. We were really successful, and all 16 puppies were sold in less than a week at $2,000 a piece. So when my mother-in-law pockets $32,000, she said to me, Mike, it's time for you to help other people get to the top of Google, all before search engine optimization was even a term. It was a very fun ride, but now the algorithm is way too complicated even for me. So I've now moved on. Now, speaking about Google, our next guest is Chris Hood. He is a digital strategist, a podcast host, and a writer. He loves storytelling, and he's made it an essential part of his career. He's always loved escaping into words, sounds, images, and events to paint a solution for others to experience. It's the primary reason why he is a veteran of the digital entertainment industry with more than 3 decades of working across various mediums, including television, film, music, and video games. Today, as the head of business innovation and strategy at Google, his thought leadership and strategic insights on digital and business transformation have fueled countless enterprises' digital success. At Google, he's been fortunate enough to keep his pulse on the media and entertainment industry with strategic participation in industry solutions and developing incredible digital experiences across all of the mediums. He also has the honor of hosting That Digital Show, which is a weekly podcast for Google Cloud. Welcome to the show, Chris Hood.
Yay! Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Of course, it's an honor to have you on the show. And I'm sure all of our student listeners, they're all Gen Z college students. They always want to talk to somebody who is working for Google because that for them is the ultimate place to work. So we have so many questions for you, but I think it's probably best if we go all the way back because you started out by selling popcorn in a local movie theater and you were a film student. So I'm wondering what was so appealing about cinema to you at such a young age?
Oh, I think the appeal of cinema went all the way back to before my first job, probably when I was maybe 13, 14, maybe before that. Just sitting in the theater and watching these stories unravel, it was miraculous to me. And I remember sitting at a Del Taco with my best friend at the time. And our typical Friday night was like, let's go get fast food and then let's go see a movie. And I said, you know what? If I got a job at the movie theater, we could save so much money. I could get in it, it's free. We wouldn't have to like pay to go see movies anymore. And so I did it. And it became one of my best and favorite jobs of all time. It was everything I really wanted it to be and more. I tell everybody if you are looking for a first job, like go to the movie theaters. You get to see people, you get to learn about business, you get to engage with stories on the screen. So yeah, I've always loved it, and I think it just continued to fuel my interest in that space.
What a great experience. I love that story. And ultimately, you received a lot of industry awards for theater marketing campaigns, including the National Association of Theater Owners coveted Customer Service Award and Hollywood Reporters Grand Prize Showmanship Award 3 years in a row for Jurassic Park, Wyatt Earp, and Apollo 13. So I'm wondering, where did the idea come from to really just revolutionize on screen advertising?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things in there. There was the marketing promotions and campaigns around the movies, and yeah, won a lot of really interesting awards for that. But one of the other things that I had embarked on at that time was this concept around on screen advertising. Now, for those of you who are my age, and there's probably not many who are listening to this, but for those of you who are my age, when you used to go into the movie theater, you would see these screen advertisements and trivia questions, but it wasn't in the digital format that we're familiar with today. It was actually on lineal slides. And there was a carousel of slides. It had about 50 in it and it rotated around. And I remember because I would go to the theater all the time and I'd see a trivia question pop up like, what was the best selling movie of all time? And you'd be like, oh, it's, at the time it was actually E.T., but yeah, it's E.T. And you'd sit there long enough and all of a sudden the same trivia question would come up because all it was this rotation. And I thought, there has to be a better way to doing this. We're in the digital age, or we're starting to venture into this digital age. At that time, it was in the early 90s. And I said, I know if I put all of the trivia questions into a database and then pulled from it, and not only was I able to pull from this database of trivia questions, but I could have all of the answers randomized. So instead of having answer 1, 2, 3, 4, it could be 3, 4, 2, 1. And then every single time somebody comes into the theater, there's no way possible that they would ever see the exact same trivia question on the screen. And so I created a on-screen digital service that allowed you to not only do randomized trivia questions, but interactive games, puzzles, ways of advertising for movies upcoming, movie trailers were embedded into it, and advertising. And it was awesome. And I built this whole thing and produced it. Now, if we fast forward to today, it's very interesting because we basically reverted back to the same old story. It's a rotated, same content every single time you go to the theater, and it's mass produced. And basically, it's just now in a video format on the screen as opposed to any type of interactive nature. So I still think we have a long way to go to show the original vision that I had for this, especially in today's age where it's so much easier to do. But yeah, it was an incredible idea and incredible experience, and I loved building that.
Yeah, it must be so frustrating for you to go to movies and then see like we've gone way back to the start and we've
Yeah,
made no progress
no
whatsoever.
progress at all. And if you talk to some people, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we've got great progress." Yeah, sure you do.
No, you
Yeah,
don't. No, you don't. I saw this in the
I'm just sitting here
90s.
watching a commercial now. Thank you.
So, all right. So then you join the music industry. You're with this small startup called Ruckus Network, and you designed the first cloud-based music player, which was called TunePost before there was even a cloud. So, how did you know? How did you have the foresight to know that the future of music was actually digital?
Well, let's start with Ruckus because that's a very interesting story for your audience, which was Ruckus was designed as a music sharing platform to combat Napster. Back in the day, music piracy was all over the place. College campuses were sharing music left and right. And then the recording industry was suing students at universities for the illegal sharing of software and music. And so Ruckus was formulated with this intention to bring legitimate license based music to college campuses. Hugely successful. But at the time, the technology was let's set up a server at the campus. And instead of a Napster free sharing, that server would actually house all the music files and you could go and tap into it and download whatever you wanted. It was still considered an on premise type of experience. The biggest problem with music back in that day was that I couldn't share things like my playlist, or more so, if I even had a playlist, let's say I had an iPod and I built a playlist on it, I would have to go recreate that exact same playlist on my desktop. Or if I had another device created on another device, we didn't even have cell phones back then. So all you were doing was creating and replicating playlists in different places so that you could have the same listening experience no matter what device you were on. And so we asked a simple question. What if you didn't even have to recreate your playlist? What if that playlist traveled with you? So the same playlist that you created one time on one device was shared across multiple other devices that you owned. That was the cloud. That is essentially what we have today. This seamless experience where you could watch a movie on one device, go to another device, and pick up the exact same place where you left off on that movie. That's what the cloud does for us. Well, 20 years ago, that was not in existence. We had the internet, we had devices. We didn't really have cell phones, but they were becoming, readily available. And we had to have a way to share that experience across all of these different devices and make it consistent. And so TunePost was a collaboration between Sony Music and Universal Music, specifically designed to allow music sharing to happen seamlessly across devices. It was awesome.
Wow. That is just absolutely awesome and obviously well ahead of its time. Just incredible. And then you just continue to transform industries. Later, you developed the storytelling technologies, you innovated new mechanisms for viewers to engage with television content for shows. So we're talking about Glee, Gotham, Sleepy Hollow, American Idol. I clearly remember watching American Idol and voting for my favorite singers. It was something we did as a family, and we thought it was really fun. So, how did you develop all of these engagement tools across multiple platforms like Xbox, PlayStation, Apple TV, Roku, Chromecast? I mean, was that kind of similar thinking to what you were doing with TunePost?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, you'll start to see a theme in here. If we go all the way back to the movie experience with the digital on-screen advertising, it was me sitting in a movie theater watching the screen and saying, like, this is boring. Or me sitting in front of multiple devices and saying, like, hey, I need to share stuff. Why am I duplicating my efforts? Or me sitting in front of a TV and like, how would I want to interact with that TV? If we think about everything that we do today from a consumer perspective, it starts there. What is something that you do on a daily basis that you wish you could do differently? Like, the concepts are not hard here. We all do it. You might go into a Starbucks and say, well, yeah, I can order my coffee and pay for it with my phone and go pick it up, and that's cool. But someone in the back of their mind is thinking, like, yeah, but wouldn't it be cool if there was actually a cow here that I could get my milk from? Like, there's somebody out there with crazy ideas sitting there thinking, from my perspective, I wish I could do this, whatever that is. And that's the foundation. Whether it's interacting with music, interacting with a TV, voting on American Idol, you're thinking about it from that consumer perspective and trying to develop engaging, insightful, and interactive functionality that brings those experiences to life. And that is what I've been doing throughout my career, is like finding the way that I can help consumers have better experiences. And the fact that I'm a consumer and you're a consumer and everybody who's listening is a consumer, all you have to do is think about all those things like, what if I could do this? And then actually go and do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And really, any of our listeners can do that because, just like you said, they're all consumers. So I think, that really just kind of opens up your mind, say, wow, I could really just do just about anything. Listening to your experiences and just some of the things and the ways you've been able to revolutionize everything that we hear, see, and touch. I mean, your career is simply amazing. Today, you're the head of business innovation and strategy at Google, and you have the honor of hosting that digital show, this business podcast for the Google Cloud. So, talk to our audience a little bit about what the interview process was like at Google and what is it like to work there every day?
Yeah. I still pinch myself working at Google every day. Yeah, I love it. And it's fascinating and amazing. And it's one of those places where, like we just talked about, I can come up with all these ideas and I can say, what if we had a cow sitting at the Starbucks? And somebody at Google is like, yeah, well, let's try that. So, if you have crazy ideas, Google's a wonderful place to come and work for. And especially with my interactions with other businesses. I speak with companies all over the world. And when I sit down with them, it's like, hey, let's throw everything out the window and just come up with things that are crazy because something might be successful and interesting and what consumers are looking for. So the process for Google for me was relatively easy. I actually had some friends working there, some coworkers, people I had worked with before. They recommended me. I applied, went through the process, and we can talk about the process. Happy to do that. And honestly, there was a period of time where they put a hiring freeze, and I went through all of my interviews. I was waiting for an offer letter that I was ensured was going to come, but then this hiring freeze came and said, "Oh well, we can't hire anymore." And I'm like, "Oh, like 24 hours earlier, and I could have gotten in the door." And that actually went on for like another 3 weeks because they were going back and forth saying, "Look, we've pretty much already made the offer. We have this open rec. We want to bring him in. Like, can we just bypass, get an exception on the rule, approve?" Right. So, like, everything up to that point was wonderful. But then we ran into this little challenge. But that's okay. It all worked out, and I'm perfectly happy and content. And I don't think about it that often. um, but the hiring process for anybody who's looking to get into Google, and it's a question that I get asked all the time. First and foremost, go to careers.google.com. Like, just go to the careers page and look. Find things that you are interested in. It is not going to happen because you know somebody or somebody's going to be able to give you a reference. We don't do that at Google, and there's really good reasons why we don't. And I'll get into that. But go find a job that you're interested in and just apply. Apply to 100 jobs if you want. It doesn't matter. Apply, apply, apply. Wait for a call, talk to people, network, continue to apply, and don't get frustrated at all. And it doesn't necessarily matter what your experience is, and it doesn't necessarily matter what your degree is in. Just apply. And I talk a lot with students about the differences between your experience and your passions. Always follow your passions. The experience can be taught, the experience can be learned. You can follow that along the pathway to whatever role you want. But the passion of what you really want to do, that stuff can't be taught. That's inherently inside of you. Just like I have a passion for innovation and strategy and helping customers and consumers discover new things. If that's your passion, go do it. Also, if you've got some sort of hobby, include your hobby in your resume. It does not matter. I once had somebody say, "I'm in fashion design, but I want to get into technology." I go, "Well, put fashion design on your resume." "Well, that has nothing to do with each other." I go, "Are you kidding me?" It absolutely has something to do with each other. For example, think about the metaverse that is coming upon us today and the need to design things virtually. Your fashion experience can actually benefit someone in the metaverse. Or video games. We've got these things like skins and add-ons and new armor for whatever game you want to build. That stuff is being designed not only by IT designers, but also by fashion experts who get it and can materialize that visually. So just because you might not think that your hobby directly correlates with a role at Google, still put it on your resume. Show what you're passionate about. Show where your interests are. And that, more than anything, is going to help you.
Wow, that is just fascinating. I love the discussion. I know our student listeners are going to be listening very carefully to every word that you say because they all want to come and work for Google. I promise you. I mean, you're the guy to ask this question. I mean, what does the future look like at Google, and what should we expect to see in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I wish I knew. you know, when I looked back at things like my on-screen advertising we talked about, I could clearly see a pathway where digital technologies was going to change the way we engage with things. Today, that's still the case. In what format that takes, there's a lot of questions around that. We just talked about the metaverse. I could argue that the metaverse is never actually going to become a reality in the way that people think it is. We could skip over that and it could be something completely and totally different. I know there's a lot of people out there, especially probably students, who are fascinated by crypto and meta and NFSs and CFRs and LMNOPs and whatever else you want to call them. Yeah, they may be successful. They may also not be successful. If we knew, we'd all be investing in it and we would be filthy rich. The fact is, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. So if NFCs and the such are something you're passionate about, absolutely follow it. But I'm not going to sit here and say that that's the next big thing because we don't know. And there could be any number of ways that we interact with things. You have to set a foundation for what do we know? We know that the internet necessarily is not going to go away. Call it connectivity. We are connected to people. It's an ecosystem. That is not going to go away. We know that we have consumer engagements. We go to the store, we buy something. We go to dinner, we buy something. We go see a movie, we buy something. Like that transaction is most likely always going to be there. How that all works together is the question. How will transactions of the future happen? Well, we can look at history and we can say, well, I used to pay by cash. Sometimes I paid by check. Now I pay by phone. Now I pay by something else. Maybe I have a chip implanted in my arm and I can scan my retina and I get automatically charged. I don't know. But the basic functionality of I need something and I buy it, that's not going to change. The mechanisms, the technologies are always going to be constantly evolving and it could go anywhere. And you just have to understand the basic and the foundational elements and then worry about, what's next after that.
Love the discussion. I think that's great. I'm very passionate about college fraternities and sororities. These are very old organizations that were founded 150 years ago. And it's very difficult for them to get out of tradition and the ways that we have always done things. So, how do you build a culture of innovation within the organization?
There are many companies out there that are in the exact same problem, not just fraternities and sororities. Companies that you may deal with on a regular basis right now, and you don't realize it, 150, 200-year-old companies. And internally, they're always saying, yeah, well, that's just how we've always done it.
Right.
The other thing that I hear often is, well, you don't understand us. We're different than everybody else.
Right.
and I go, oh, I get it. You don't have customers. Oh, no, you do? Oh, okay. You don't have data about those customers. Oh, wait, you have that too. Okay. You don't care to protect that data and have security of your customers' information. That's different. That's where you're different, right? No, you care about that? Oh, I'm not seeing why are you different then. But the reality is, yeah, these organizations often get stuck in the rut of, this is how we've always done it, and we're not going to change. Mm-hmm. This has always been successful for us. We don't need to change. Reality is, once again, is the technology and the consumers are the driving force, no matter what. If we go back to consumer-facing approach to this, as a consumer, if you today were to walk into the grocery store, load up your cart, go to pay, and the cashier said, oh, we're sorry, we don't take debit cards anymore. What would you say? I mean, there are some people who would be like, well, I don't need groceries. I'm going to go somewhere else. Exactly. The consumer experience will always drive that engagement. And if the consumer experience is, I want to pay by debit card, you better be paying and offer the ability to pay by a debit card. This is why we see the increase of things like Apple Pay and Samsung Pay and Google Pay and PayPal and all these things, because the more we engage with things, we want to be able to do it in the ways we want to do it. And if you can't accommodate that, that's when you start to lose business. So, consumer is always first. The technology of how the consumer wants to engage with you is going to be second. And then you have to start to evolve to support that. And that culture internally is all around opening up your ability and understanding and support to embrace it. So you can't sit here and say, well, this is how we've always done it. We're going to continue to do it that way. You have to start saying, great, how do I change? How do I meet the consumer's needs and deliver them what they expect so that they are happy? If a customer is happy, you generate business value. It's really that simple.
Love it. Now, let's talk about failure for a moment because so many of the college students that I work with, they're just completely afraid to fail. But that's exactly how I was able to find eventual success. It wasn't a straight line to success. I can guarantee you that. So, how can we build failure skills within today's college students?
Well, that's a hard one because we give them grades.
Yeah.
You are successful, you get an A. And unfortunately, I'm I'm a professor. I teach colleges. I know the level of students that are coming in and out of the college system. I understand the ones that are actually genuinely trying so that they can get the A, and others that have one excuse after the other. The problem is inherent to the education system. You are rewarded for your success and not rewarded for your educational experience.
Mm.
And so, if we were to put this in context of a corporation like Google, you are rewarded. And I want to be very clear on this because there's another side of it. You're rewarded for trying. Now, as you heard, like there's a whole nother conversation we can have about like everybody gets recognition for trying. That's not what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about legitimately the effort that you put in to try something new. And if it fails, that's okay. You're not punished because it fails. You're rewarded because you tried something different. It would be like if I said to you, hey, let's go to dinner. Have you tried escargot before?
Nope.
Okay. And I said, you know what? Try escargot. Well, I don't like it. And for those of you who don't know what escargot is, it's snails. So if it's a French dish, snails. And if I said, here, eat this. If you eat it, I'll give you $100.
Sure.
Would you eat it?
Yes.
Yeah, for the $100.
That's right.
You may, you know, find it awful and throw it up later, but you've tried, you failed, and you're rewarded for that.
Mm-hmm.
You're rewarded because you tried something new. And that's the analogy here, right? You've got to be willing to embrace the unknown, learn about failure. We didn't really talk about that, but there's a concept at Google that we called psychological safety. And that's basically like, it's okay. You can say something stupid. You can come with an opinion. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to berate you. You can try something that we all think is dumb, but might be successful. The point is you do it. And once you do it, if it fails, you learn from that and you move on. If colleges were all about, for say, the first 5 weeks of a course, we're going to have a quiz every single day. And it doesn't matter what grade you get on it. We're just going to have a quiz. Mm-hmm. You know why? Because you're probably going to fail, but you're going to learn. What did you do wrong? What could you change to get the answer correct the next time? Too many students are coming through for job interviews and I ask them questions. And the first response that I get every single time is the textbook response. I don't want to hear the textbook response. I want to hear what that means to you. What's your opinion of it? What do you think it actually means from a business perspective? Give me your opinions, because the opinions are things that you formulated based on failures. And if you can do that, then I know that everything else that you've learned in a textbook will just come naturally, because that was the easy part.
Wow, this is just mind blowing. I love the conversation here. And I also know that you're all about data driven decision making. Today's college students, they want information to decide which organization on campus is the best because they want to be on a winning team. They also want return on investment. That's incredibly important if they have to pay dues, for example, to belong to an organization. So, how do you prove that your organization is the best?
Well, data driven is not solely about who's the best and not the best. It's also understanding what changes might need to be made in order to become better. So we go back to a consumer perspective. Let's say I'm a fraternity and I'm trying to get a bunch of people to come to my fraternity. And what are they going to do? They're either going to talk to their family because they're lineage of some sort. They're going to talk to their friends like, well, who are you going to do? And who am I going to do? Yeah, okay. You might talk around the campus a little bit. You may go to Facebook and read the message forums like, oh, these guys suck. Whatever the case might be, that's fine. That's your analysis. You're taking people. We do that for everything. You do that if you go to a restaurant. You're taking people's opinions. You go that when you go see a movie. You're taking people's opinions. You're reading the reviews. You may or may not listen to the critics. Okay, though, that's fine. But what if the organization itself doesn't change? What if everybody says, like, oh, these guys are bad? Are they going to continue to be bad? Well, this is how we've always done it. Yeah, we're fine if we only get 3 new recruits per semester, whatever it is. We're fine with that. That's a good number for us. Well, can you take the data and then can you make changes based on the data?
Mm-hmm.
We do this at Google with our employees. So we send out a survey every year called Google Geist. It's basically a survey for all of our employees. And the survey will ask any range of topics like, where do you prefer to work from home, work in the office? What motivates you? What kind of recognition do you like? There will be a ton of questions. And then we take all of the responses to that, we formulate it, we analyze it, and then we have to act upon it. We make legitimate changes to the organization to benefit our employees, to make it the best place to work in the world. But we do that because we're gathering data and we're analyzing that data and then we're acting upon that data. If you were told that there was a certain part of your fraternity that no one liked and you just ignored it all of the time, and you said, well, we're not going to talk about that, or we're not going to look at that, or we're not going to change that because there's a bias internally. Once again, we've always done it, so we're going to continue to always do it. But if someone came to you and said, you're going to get 100 recruits this semester if you made this one change, if you don't do it, that's on you. Mm-hmm. But if you do make the change because you've listened to the data and you understand that the data is going to generate positive results, that's success. And so you have to take that data, you have to continually analyze that data, and you have to continually make changes to your organization that support that data.
That's so insightful because I know the fraternities and sororities that are listening, many of them are not regularly surveying their members to figure out what's going well, what's not going well. And then, just like you said, taking it to the next level, which is actually making some changes. So, if we have prospective new members that want to join our fraternity and maybe they're evaluating us based on chapter GPA. And maybe out of 20 fraternities, let's say we're right in the middle. We are fraternity number 10 out of 20. So then the question becomes, okay, we are right in the middle of the pack in terms of GPA. Here is our plan on how we plan on making improvements to our GPA. And this is what we're doing. And I think if I heard that, then at least they have a plan. They have an idea on where they want to go. So maybe they are not number one. Okay. But what is your plan? What's the strategy? And what are we actually doing to make the improvement? And I think that is really what our listeners need to start focusing on within their organizations. Really good.
Absolutely. Totally.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. Now, I love Irvine, California. I do get out to UC Irvine every now and then to speak, and we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. So I need to know, what is your favorite restaurant in Irvine, California?
Oh my gosh, there are so many restaurants in Irvine, California. That's like saying, give me the top 10 restaurants, but the first 100 don't count or something. I mean, like it's ridiculous. Um, so the only one that I can come up with is something that's somewhat unique. I'm sure that all of my foodie friends who are actually at UCI are probably going to be cringing when I say it, but that's the point of this. There's a restaurant called Burnt Crumbs, and one of their specialties is a spaghetti grilled cheese sandwich. So something to think about, something different. It's very good food. They have a lot of wonderful menu items, but yeah, one of their specialties, spaghetti sandwich. So
I've never had a spaghetti grilled cheese, and now I know exactly where I'm going
there you go.
as soon as I hit UC Irvine. All right, I love it. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to let you know what I think. I think this has been really, really great. All right, so if our listeners, if they want to maybe book you to speak on their college campus, or they just want to connect with you, where should they go?
The best way to get in touch with me is my website, chrishood.com, CHRISHOOD.com. All of my social media profiles are there, email, contact forms, whatever you want is there. But feel free to email me. Happy to come and speak or talk to anybody about some of the same topics we've covered today, and definitely be open to meeting new people.
Chris, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I know it's going to be one of the most listened to episodes on the podcast. So I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Of course. Glad to be here and appreciated the conversation.
Yes, of course. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this conversation with Chris. If you did, please like it on social media. Please share it on social media with other college students. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we're going to see you next time.